representing Eurelectric. Thank you so much for joining us today. Marion, let's dive straight into it. What are you seeing in terms of the European energy market? What trends are you noticing?
I would start with the main trend, which is decarbonization. Decarbonization will mean much more renewables in the system. We have seen huge cost decreases, and the big majority of investments from utilities and other players are going into renewables today. So that's really the first trend I would see. To enable and unlock this potential for renewables and decarbonization, storage is another key trend. It's a technological trend. Bloomberg New Energy Finance announced yesterday that they see another 50% cost reduction coming on battery, large-scale storage, up to 2030. And this will enable to integrate much more renewables. So we see investments of batteries being coupled with renewable sites, which enable much more flexibility and reactivity. The third trend would be digitalization, obviously, and especially digitalization in the networks. It's not anymore, as in the future, about putting just more cables in the ground. It's about reacting. It's about adjusting to what's happening at local level and making the best use of flexibility resources at a decentralized level from consumers, but also from renewables generators. And all these trends are actually fueling the big mega trend which I see, and which is electrification. And electrification is what will enable decarbonization, deep decarbonization of the EU economy.
So there's actually quite a lot of change and disruption in the sector. Do you believe that the regulatory landscape is supporting this energy transition?
To some extent it does, and I think we're getting many good points with this clean energy package, for instance, which will be concluded at the beginning of next year, or at the end of this year, hopefully. Now, I believe that maybe we're not getting it completely right in terms of investment frameworks. This transition will require massive amounts of investments, especially in the electricity sector, to enable electrification and decarbonization. And therefore, longer price signals and more investor certainty will be needed, I believe. And a certain element of valuing reliability will probably be needed as well, because when we go to very high shares of renewables and variability, how do you handle that, and how do you make sure that investments can happen and that the right price signals are there? So that's investment in the generation space. Now, when we look at investments from consumers, if we want them to invest in clean electric cars or in clean heat pumps, for example, we need to make sure that electricity is competitive against other fuels. And today, across Europe, 1/3 of the electricity bill is actually taxes and levies. So when I am a consumer and I want to replace my heating system, I tend to go into a less clean solution because electricity seems to be more expensive than it is.
Sure. Interesting, quite a complex situation. But you did mention decarbonization, and for me, I'd like to know is how easy is it to balance the decarbonization with electrification goals?
So as Eurelectric, we really think that the decarbonization journey is an electrification journey. We've done some very deep analysis which shows that to achieve 95% EU economy decarbonization, we need at least 60% of electrification. Electricity today is 60% carbon neutral. We are committed to make it completely carbon neutral by mid-century, or well before 2050, which means that we can electrify transport, we can electrify buildings through heating and cooling, and we can electrify some industrial processes as well. So I don't see a discrepancy between electrification and decarbonization. It's rather the main tool to achieve decarbonization. And when we look, for example, at the current transport package, we are really calling for ambitious targets to decarbonize the transport sector through electricity and other fuels, because this is the only way to decarbonize sectors which today are a little bit lagging behind compared to the electricity sector.
Wow. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much for your insights. And thank you so much to our viewers for joining us at European Utility Week.